Hello, what's up? This is Beijing.
The GSO was created as a conclusion of a 6-month business process improvement task force that was run the first half of last year. The net of it was that we were rediscovering problems across the company, and so we wanted to create a center of competence that will allow the company not only to create a best practices, but also to look into the future as to what we need to have over the next several years.
I'm Tina John. I'm a configuration management engineer here in Symantec. I work with the storage foundation team. We have patch releases and build releases that we have to do for 4 platforms. That's AIX, HP, Solaris, and may I take that?
If I look at just a basic engineering life, they spend a lot of time cracking on some of the really hard questions and try to resolve those.
So when will you come for the meeting also? Please.
They have to work around the clock and they have to be multilingual. They will be able to communicate with people around the world.
I don't know if you've got that information to hand at all at the moment or not.
Yeah, it's B_5_O.
Working in a global workplace would mean that my afternoon would mean someone else's midnight. It gives a nice kind of a togetherness in the entire company, wherein no one actually feels that you all are geographically away from each other. The best example of global work culture can be seen in the escalation team, wherein we know engineers who are working on the same bug fix. Partly in India, when it's night here, they would just write the whole thesis and send it to person in US, and then the person would hand it over to UK. So it's like around the clock, everyone's working.
Symantec actually is in a very positive, unique space, which is we have a number of different offshore locations. Some of the offshore locations are there to develop and modify the products for the local market dynamics. Like, for example, we have presence in Tokyo for the Japan marketplace, and we have a small team in Beijing for the China market. But we also have global R&D centers that are scattered throughout the world to tap into the talent for the company. We have locations in Beijing and Chengdu, which is in the west end of China. We have over 2,500 people in Pune, India, and Chennai. We've also opened up and have a really good center in Warsaw and a small presence in Estonia.
My name is Yao Cai. I'm a software engineer in Internationalization Department, China Development Center. My main responsibility is to provide testing service to various Symantec product groups. The most challenging aspect of my job is requires fast learning ability and communication skills. The US guys have a style of expressing something very directly and say what they want. But for Chinese people, it's quite different. Chinese people is very humble and they like silence, and sometimes they do not want to say no very directly. We try to get used to each other's style.
The GSO team is responsible for looking at how we do global talent sourcing across different countries and so on, both within or with our own centers as well as with partners. So, for example, how do we do collaboration across multiple geographies? If you have a product development team, what are the best practices of having a global product development team? If you have, for example, other functional areas, whether it's technical support or so on. And we also help the GSO team identify how these organizations in different countries and so on should actually be governed so that they are in the best interests of the whole company.
I've been looking at it, and it's a USSH problem, and I'll fix it, but it's just let you know that it's not a UFAD problem. I'm Tom Bean. I do programming and debugging of the programs and find out what's wrong, submit them to source control so that they can come out to the customer, and the customer has reports back to us, and then I fix the problems that they encounter in the field, and all the way along the chain. I ride my bike to work. I find driving the automobile is more of a pain than just riding a bike. I use my own energy, and oh, by the way, I can keep trim and I can eat what I want. One of the challenges is to get people to understand that you're not a miracle worker. If I pick up some code and I'm told there's a problem with this code, and I'm even told what the problem is, I have to study the code to understand why the code is doing what it's not supposed to be doing. And it takes a little bit of time to do that.
The challenge today is that the competition for talent has become global. And so even in those places like India and China, in India we were one of the very early entrants. Today it's a very, very competitive marketplace. Symantec can offer to engineers, I think, a great place to work, tremendous colleagues, the opportunity to really have an impact and change the world.
I've been given the mandate to expand my group, but have a limited budget.
The key things that we do when we talk to clients internally is to ask them, what are your growth plans? You know, what are your constraints? Do you have any cost constraints, and you're looking for certain types of talent? Symantec, as a company, we make investments. We make investments in certain geographies, certain markets, and we also work on, you know, shoring up our brand in certain areas, and so we can tie that in to stuff that you're doing. So the key thing we'll need to know is, you know, how do you want to grow? What are your constraints? And how most effectively we can help you with that.
Symantec is a wonderful place to work at for one reason, that it allows you and gives you the freedom to work out of home, which is so good for a family woman like me. Sometimes my kid's not keeping well and I can't go to office, and I just need to call my manager and tell him.
The main concern from the US centers is that my job is going away to elsewhere. The main concern from the people in places like India and China is, am I only getting the job that nobody else wants? And nobody wants to do that. The truth is, it's neither one. You were basically trying to create an environment where you have projects that work across the multiple different locations. Not every location has a monopoly on talent, and so you need to be able to go where the talent is available and being created.
We'll take the learnings from India and apply those to what we do in Beijing and Chengdu. And my hope is that time will help us become smarter, and best practices will emerge and evolve, internal best practices, not some amorphous industry thing that happens out there, but what we do here inside Symantec. If that happens, then we'll get the true benefits of these investments for sure.
Heart and soul of an engineer is truth. You want things to work. You want things to happen. And when they happen, that's the payback for engineers. And it's actually hard to separate the work from the engineer, because I'll do something and I'll point to it and say, that's me.